Wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing, I wish you a very happy holiday season. And what better way to celebrate than with a collection of ostensibly true stories, all taken from Dr. CREEPEN'S vault, the subreddit I set up so you could share stories with me and I could read them all for you. Now we have an incredible collection of 6 stories this evening, ranging from US Navy veterans through to truck drivers and medical couriers. So my dear friends, it's time once again to sit back and relax with your favorite drink and listen. I want to begin by saying that I've been an over-the-road trucker for the past 2 years now. Ever since I was 21, and I honestly love what I do, even if it's for ungrateful people. But during the past 2 years, I've seen some unnatural things on the road. Things that have no real explanation. Some feel evil, others just odd. I'll begin with the one that most people who are, or who have family in the industry, have experienced or at least have heard of: the black dog. I won't go into too much detail, but every commercial driver has to follow hours of service regulations stating you can drive no more than 11 hours a day, and you can't be on duty more than 14. If either are met, it requires a 10-hour rest break. Seeing the black dog is caused by your brain forcing a shutdown because of fatigue while you're driving. It happens so quickly. You fall asleep with your eyes open, blending reality and the dream state, causing hallucinations. The old wives' tale states that if you see the black dog, it's time to get some rest. Some say the dog is there to protect people from getting into accidents, sort of like a guardian angel. But after this experience, I think there's more to it than everything previously stated. 6 months in as an over-the-road driver, I had a delivery to make in Tonawanda, New York, and was coming up through Pennsylvania on one of the state routes. It was right around 10 p.m., and I still had about 3 hours left to drive. Now, I can't stress this part enough. I wasn't even remotely tired. I came around a winding set of curves on this route through the forest. I came around a blind left curve, and there I saw it. A black dog, come darting out into the road. I was traveling at 50 miles an hour, with 42,900 pounds in the trailer. There was no way I could stop in time. I stabbed into the brakes, and then I felt the thud. Yes, I felt the truck hit this dog. There's no way it would survive being hit by 76,000 pounds at 50 miles an hour. When I finally came to a stop, about 400 feet later, I pulled off as far to the right as I could and turned on my 4-ways. I stepped down out of the truck and walked around to the front. No damage, no blood, no scratches, no anything. I walked all the way back to where I'd hit the dog. No blood, no mangled mess of bone and fur. There was nothing. I went back and grabbed my flashlight out of the truck and started heading to where I'd hit it to look around. If it was someone's dog, they had a right to know what had happened. I searched for this dog for 30 minutes and found nothing. I was completely confused, but I gave up the search and turned to walk back to my truck. As I turned, I got chills down my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I broke out in a cold sweat. The dog was sitting just below my driver's side mirror, staring at me. I could only see it because of the amber marker light on the side of my truck. I decided to shine my flashlight on the dog, but as soon as the beam of light hit it, it just vanished. Gone. My gut told me it was time to get out of Dodge. I ran back to my truck, climbed inside, locked the doors, released my brakes, and booked it down the road. For the next 5 miles, I swear, I kept seeing this black dog on the side of the road, just staring back up at me. Something didn't feel right about it at all. It was always staring at me, always expressionless. It didn't do anything but sit there. But it would disappear, and then I'd see it again. A fear I've never felt before started creeping up on me. I was legitimately scared at that point. I didn't know what to do. There was nowhere within enough space for a 73-foot combination vehicle to turn around. This delivery needed to happen. So, as they say, I kept on trucking. 15 miles later, weird things started to happen. My interior lights would turn themselves off and on. My headlights would flicker erratically. I began to lose air pressure from my brakes, which is not good. If your air pressure drops below 20 to 40 psi, there's not enough air pressure to keep the springs held back from applying both the truck and trailer brakes full force. I got down to 60 psi. The low air warning light came on, and I pulled over to the side of the road, applied my brakes and 4 ways, and got out to check what was making me lose air pressure. All of my airlines were severed. It looked as if they were bitten clean in half. The airlines on big trucks are designed to withstand 150 psi of outward pressure, and something just bit them in half like it was nothing. I'd notified dispatch of the breakdown, put out my reflective triangles, and waited. An hour had passed, and I didn't see a damn thing. Another 18-wheeler was coming up in my rears, so I switched on my CB into channel 19, which is the common channel, and radioed to keep to the left, as there was a very small shoulder, and I was about halfway into the lane of travel. He radioed back. 10-4. Thanks for the heads up, driver. Everything all right? So, I radioed back. Yeah, airlines are busted. Waiting on the wrecker to get here. He didn't respond after that. He came past me without slowing down, easily doing 60 in a 45 zone. I watched him follow the curve to the left. Then, brake lights. I heard the screeching of tires and watched as he swerved off the road and into a pine tree. I climbed out of my truck and ran over to him. The truck was smashed in, and a branch was pierced through the windshield. I quickly opened up the driver door, and there I saw it. The branch had impaled him through the shoulder, just above the armpit. Blood was leaking out of the area, but the branch was acting like a plug almost, preventing excessive blood loss. The driver was unconscious. I immediately called 911, gave them the state route and mile marker of the accident, the nature of his wounds. They notified EMS and the state police right away. 20 minutes later, they arrived. They had to use a saw to cut the branch both in front and behind the driver. They had to carry him down from the truck to the gurney. He finally came to. He started crying, not out of pain, but remorse. The only thing he kept saying was, "Did I hit her? Did I hit that poor girl?" I was taken aback by shock. The last house I'd passed was 3 miles away, and there were no houses in sight of this stretch of the road. The ambulance rushed him off to the hospital. The police notified the towing company to come and get its truck, and called his company to inform them. I gave the state police my witness statement, and shortly after, the wrecker for my truck arrived, along with a relay driver to finish my delivery. The towman took a look at my airlines. All he said was, "You saw it, didn't you? The dog. You saw it." Shaken, I replied, "Yes." All I got back was, "It saved your life, kid. Remember that." We got the truck hooked up, and I was on my way, having it towed to a dealership about 30 miles away. That was the last time I ever saw the black dog. Well, so far at least. I don't know what it is, what it wants, why it chooses who it does. All I know is that it saved my life. So, if in your travels you ever see the black dog, pull over. Immediately. I have plenty more stories to tell, but I don't know if people want to hear them. Let me know and I'll try to get more written down. Oh, And after doing some research, the nearest houses to where this took place, well, there aren't any family homes. No children whatsoever. This event takes place about 3 months after the black dog incident, and I still just don't understand what happened to this day. I was traveling through a very rural part of Iowa, later at night, probably around 10 p.m. I was doing my best to avoid interstates and US routes because the trailer I was pulling did not have sliding tandems, and as a result my trailer axle was overweight. I didn't want to be hit with a $1,000 fine and an axle overweight on my CSA score as a result of having to pull into a weigh station. For those of you who don't know a lot about Iowa, it's a very flat state for the most part, and it's also home to the world's largest truck stop, the Iowa 80. I'd stopped there previously to pick up a few things and visit the Truckers Museum next to it. It's a place I'd recommend anyone to visit, trucker or not. I'd left there and began my travels again, avoiding roads that were weight restricted or had low clearance locations. Most trailers stand 13 foot 6 inches, and any time clearance is close to that on a bridge, it's a full pucker, mainly because in some places the roads get repaved and they don't update clearance height notifications. I was about 30 miles away from any municipality in all directions when my CB radio started playing various pitches of static. Usually this means someone is talking on the CB, but they're out of range. I pulled my mic off the hanger and tried to communicate. I got no response. Yet I still kept hearing the various pitches of static. I continued driving and came upon an underpass to a road that had no clearance height notifications. I immediately pulled off to the side of the road, not wanting the top of my trailer to look like the lid of an open can of sardines. I checked my road atlas for the road I was on. No clearance restrictions, and this was a brand new atlas. The bridge in front of me looked very old. Not seeing anything to suggest I didn't have the clearance, I slowly crept forward under the bridge. I was relieved to fully clear the bridge and continue driving. But that relief was short-lived. I looked into my mirrors after passing under the bridge, and a chill crept up my spine. There was no bridge there. That's when things started getting really weird. I looked back forward and realized there were no houses, no trees, no mailboxes, no cars or anything worth more. Just this long stretch of road. That's when my CB began to ring out with very old-timey music. It was blaring in volume, so I turned it down. I immediately pulled over again, got out my phone. No reception. My Qualcomm had no connection. My GPS had no satellite signal. My normal radio had shut off. I tried making calls and sending messages through the Qualcomm. Calls didn't get through, and messages didn't send. I had no choice but to drive this seemingly endless stretch of road. So I kept driving. After about an hour, I realized that nothing was changing. The moon in the sky hadn't moved. My fuel hadn't gone down. There was still nothing but road and fields off to the sides. I continued to drive. My Qualcomm was non-functioning, and at this point I said to hell with the hours of service regulations. I drove for 8 more hours, until I was so tired I couldn't drive anymore. I decided it best to shut down and try to get some sleep. And then it hit me. The entire time I'd been out here, I hadn't been hungry or thirsty. Nothing seemed to change at all. I laid awake for a while, before finally falling asleep. I woke up with the rising sun. I sat up and realized that things weren't right. I woke up in a bed, inside a room, undoubtedly inside a house. Someone walked inside the room and said, "Good morning, sweetie. Breakfast is ready downstairs." I felt this undying urge to call her Mom, so I did. I told her I'd be down in a minute. She was wearing a dress similar to that you'd see in the 1920s. I realized everything here was wrong, but I was being assimilated into this kid's life. I couldn't do anything about it. Panic questions would pop up in my head, but I could never voice them. It was as if I was in the back seat and someone else was driving. I remembered crying in my head, but the tears never fell from my eyes. I lived for 70 years in that existence. In time, I'd come to know my name was Edward. I graduated high school, fell in love, got married, had kids, had a stable job, became a grandfather, and I died. I lived every single day of that existence, always knowing it wasn't right, but not being able to do anything about it, for almost 26,000 days. Oh, I'd missed my family so much. In my head, I'd cried every single day, knowing I would never see my family again. The despair I felt growing every day was unimaginable. Eventually, I just stopped caring and tried to enjoy as much of this life as I could. When my eyes closed that final time, I was awoken by a loud tapping sound. I was back in my truck, and a wave of hunger and thirst so intense hit me that it buckled me to my knees. I went to my window, and there was a state trooper requesting for me to get moving. So, I started driving again, and pulled over at the nearest area I could. I ate and drank like I hadn't eaten anything in years. I looked down at my phone. I had 17 missed calls, 10 from dispatch, 5 from my mother, and 2 from some random number. 4 days had passed. I was asleep on the side of this road for 4 days, after living another life for 70 years. I refuse to go to Iowa anymore, and dispatch doesn't send me there, although I've never told them what happened. I never tried to do any research on what happened, did not want to know about it. I'm now still wary of any bridge or underpass, regardless of whether it's in a populated area or not. The worst part is, to this day, I sometimes still have trouble remembering that my name isn't Edward. Let me begin by saying the US Navy, sadly, has among the highest divorce and suicide rates of any profession. The long and extended deployments, the stress of little to no communication with the outside world while overseas, or the little amazing things we take for granted on land, the luxuries you just can't bring onto a ship, and the many other sacrifices, including not seeing loved ones for a very long time. Well, enough bitching. We know what we signed up for, right? So, now you have an idea, or a glimpse, perhaps, on why it can be so stressful. That, of course, is also taking into account the job and the burdens that come with the territory. But we won't be going into too much more of that. No, you see, this story is about death and the hereafter. Is there such a thing, you ask? Years ago I may not have said so, as I've always questioned everything and tried to rationalize. Probably what got me into trouble the most, questioning authority and such. However, this event and those which followed have most certainly changed that for me. Now, I've never told this story, or any others like it, to anyone, as I've never wanted to open up about them. So, consider yourself, my audience, to be my therapists, my own personal life draft. Anyway, I digress. Imagine, if you will, you're on a floating prison 1,000,000 nautical miles from anywhere. A 900-foot massive warship with 20 levels, decks, Humvees, tanks, fighter jets, and several thousand sailors and marines. A ship so large in size, even the most experienced scurvy pirate be lost. There are so many hidden compartments, it's almost impossible to explore the entire beast, and I'd ask no one to attempt to do so, lest ye be ready to lose your way. The hallways on a ship, peaways they're called, are very narrow, as space is limited on such a vessel, for precious cargo and the like. This detail is important, as it dictates the foot traffic and the actions of said personnel. When navigating a ship, you always let the superior officer or enlisted person pass you as you slam your back against the wall. This is a sign of respect and long-standing Navy tradition. Now, at night all lights go out, and you've only but a dim red light throughout the ship to illuminate your path. If you were to step outside, say, onto the flight deck of the ship, you could look in every direction and see nothing but the vast, dark, empty abyss that is the unforgiving ocean. Very dark and dangerous to be out this time of night. Midnight comes, and I am on watch. The battle watch captain needs something. Oh God, please don't pick me, I think to myself. This place gives me the creeps. Damn, I'm the chosen one. Or, at least for this mission, I'm to undertake. Oh, great. We are out of printer paper again. I know what this means. I'll have to travel to the lowest decks of the ship in the middle of the unforgiving darkness and the ever-so-empty peaways on my quest to seek the Holy Grail, which in this case is copy paper. I'm all alone on this one. Or so I thought. I begin my voyage to the stairs that are marked Captain's Stairway, or something to that effect. It's late. No one will know. Besides, it's a long way around, and I don't want to be gone too long. This was a major shortcut. Certainly I'll be yelled at if I'm caught. Well, I make my way down the very steep, but quite nice narrow steps until I reach the deck, where I have to get to in order to retrieve my supplies. I eventually find the compartment, which, by the way, is not marked by anything and has no lights. Well, I may not have service, but my cell phone has a flashlight at least. So I fire up that bad boy as I scour around for what I need. Weird. I just noticed there's no one in here. Normally a supply officer is in these quarters. Oh well, I think. I need to grab my shit, sign the paper, and get the hell out of here. Only, I wasn't alone. I hear what I can only describe as a man pounding, with faint, deep breaths, like they're fighting for air, and I hear rustling and what sounded like someone struggling. I look around, I open all the doors I see, move every large object that could obstruct someone. After all, it's pitch black. All of a sudden, it goes quiet. I see what appeared to be two dark figures, and then a loud bang, like metal slamming down against another object, or what sounds like a construction site. I noped the fuck out of there, ran like hell, as I felt eyes watching me, as if my every move was being followed. I ran so fast in the darkness I dropped my supplies that I'd come for, my heart beating as if I was escaping gunfire. Something is after me, I thought. Am I going insane? I hear footsteps nearing me as I make my way back to my workspace. And again, it goes quiet, as if nothing had happened. I arrive back on my watch, empty-handed, looking pale and out of breath. What happened? Where the hell's my shit? My chief asks. I began to explain the situation, but he stopped me, shook his head, and looked down. Jeez, I'm fucked, I thought to myself. I'm already on thin ice with this guy, and then he motions for me to come closer, and I sit beside him. He quietly begins to scold me. I sit down with my eyes wide open, a dumb expression on my face as he informs me I was never to go back down to that space again. Why not, Chief? I ask. It's evil, son. Pure evil. Didn't anyone tell you? He looked at me, puzzled. I nodded and shook my dumb head side to side, still breathing heavily, and said quietly, "No, Chief. What the hell is down there?" I later found out there was a murder-suicide down in that space. Some type of love affair, I suppose, and a lot of guilt that followed. I don't know the full details surrounding why. What I do know is I'll never set foot on another ship again. And I didn't go back down there for the rest of the deployment. I'm not certain what I encountered that evening. All I know is I've never been the same since. I work as an emergency medical courier. What's that, you ask? Basically, hospitals and retirement homes run out of supplies and meds like you wouldn't imagine. Oftentimes, I'm delivering blood or surgical tools to an ER while someone is on the operating table from a gunshot wound or stabbing. I've had calls where someone is having a heart transplant and needed blood immediately, or they'd be dead. There must be a lot of gangs in my town, because I sure stay busy. Sometimes I'll receive a delivery for organs even. I'm on call and constantly busy. I only work at nights, as it's easier to travel and to get to where I'm going to much faster. Let's turn the clock back 2 weeks to where this all started going downhill, and my life faded to black. So, I get a call to pick up some blood from the Red Cross and take it to the hospital in Paoli, Indiana. Okay, no problem, I thought. Hell, it's only an hour-and-a-half drive, easy. I grab my keys and my service pistol. I'm a veteran with a concealed carry permit and never leave home without it. I head out to retrieve the red blood cells for delivery. I arrive at Red Cross for the blood, show my badge to get in, and sign for it. So far, so good. It's approximately 11:30 at night. Roads are clear and the weather isn't bad. No traffic, well, aside from all over the road truckers. Cross over the bridge to Indiana, and I'm now on Highway 150, westbound to Paoli. I have the blood in the back seat, and everything's going fine. I turn on cruise control and set it to 50 mpg, and sit back and relax. Have some music playing. A slight drizzle begins to come down all around. Now low visibility with fog. It's pitch black, with no streetlights on these long country roads. Suddenly, 2 large deer are in front of me. I slam on my brakes, and they lock up on the wet road. Smash! I slam into the 2 deer directly. My car's fucked. I call dispatch and alert them to the situation. I'm now out in the middle of frickin' nowhere with blood that needs to get to the hospital immediately. I call AAA for a tow. My car is in complete disarray. I wait for a driver to come and retrieve the blood to complete the delivery, as I wait for the tow truck as well. My livelihood is driving for a living, and now my car is junk. The 2 deer scatter in different directions as I get out a flashlight and assess the damage. It's 20 degrees out and the heat doesn't work in my now destroyed car. Eventually, my car and I make it back home. I order parts to try to save my work vehicle, as I also have a family and I need it for everyday use. I'm now out of work, or at least until I can make the necessary repairs. Days come and go, and I get the parts. Radiator, fan clutch, coolant reservoir, and the like. After days working on my car, bending metal, stomping on my hood, and replacing everything I need, I did all this in the freezing cold. Well, finally, I get the son of a bitch running. Yes, finally I can get back to work. So the weekend comes, and I'm working. Everything's normal, and I'm happily making money again to provide for my now 2-year-old son. Wanting the best for him, I'm working as much as possible. I get home from work, and I'm exhausted. I go to sleep and try to catch a quick nap before my next shift. My wife takes the kids and is doing some last-minute laundry, as we're moving soon and our lease was just about up. I'm out like a light after driving for 14 hours. I wake up to a monster on top of me, making loud noises. Disoriented, I look around, frantic. It's my German shepherd, Odin. He's 2 years old and 75 pounds of pure hellhound. His fierce barking puts me in a frenzy. I try to look at my surroundings, but all I see is the thickest dark black smoke you could ever imagine. I grab my phone and light up my flashlight. I can't even see an inch in front of my face. Wearing a t-shirt and shorts, Odin and I make our way downstairs, trying to escape. I can't breathe as I inhale the most horrible fumes and gases from whatever the hell is causing this madness. We're now outside. I call 911, coughing and falling to the ground, slowly losing consciousness from the smoke inhalation. Oh, gee. I yell into the phone. Our 5-pound terrier is still in the house. The operator makes it clear I'm not to enter the home and to wait for the fire department. No idea how long they'll take. Opening the door to my old-ass Ford Ranger, Odin jumps in the driver's seat. I race back into the smoke-infested home, flames coming from the basement. Visibility is now 0, and the smoke is toxic. Frantically searching with my phone's flashlight, trying to yell with whatever voice I have left. The operator still on the line. Using speakerphone, I hear them asking me, "Sir, please remain outside." I feel something brush up against me as I make my way to the top story of the house. I scoop up Dillinger, and we nope the fuck out of there. Just as we make our escape, the flames are rising as my wife and kids pull up. She's freaking out and yelling and screaming as I hand her the dog and collapse to the ground. I'm slipping in and out of consciousness. What feels like hours, but was probably only minutes later, the fire department arrives as well as EMS. I'm now being carried by 2 large firemen to the back of the ambulance as I see about 15 men getting suited up with gas masks, axes, and the big-ass water hoses. They rush into my burning home, hearing my wife yelling and my 2-year-old boy crying for me. I feel someone or something pushing against my ribs and something soft against my mouth. I now know the EMS woman was administering CPR and chest compressions to keep me from passing out. I'm awake in the back of the ambulance, being questioned by a fireman and investigators, asking me health-related questions. Choking and coughing, I'm barely able to relay much, still very disoriented and confused as to what had just occurred. I tell them as much as I know, which wasn't much, as I was just sleeping before I had to get up for work. I try to go back inside. I learn that they cut the power and said we couldn't stay there anymore. I wanted to grab some things if I could. Pissed off, I go sit back down. Them wanting to take me to the hospital. I yelled, "How can I leave my family? They now have no roof over their head and it's freezing cold. They have no food. Fuck the hospital. I have to take care of them." "Sergeant, we have a refusal," I hear him say. "It's okay, son, but I must warn you, there will be some side effects from smoke inhalation. You need to get it checked out in the next few days." "Yes, sir," I muttered. Well, turns out the dryer somehow malfunctioned and caught on fire. Lint tray was empty, and the dryer plug untouched and unharmed. It was very strange, and they were all baffled. Taking notes, the firemen get the model number for the dryer to see if there were any recalls for that particular one. It's 2 days later, and I'm cleaning the place out, salvaging what I can get, and throwing out everything that was damaged by smoke and fire. Thankfully, I had renter's insurance, and they sent us some emergency funds so we could have a roof over our head and food to eat. My family was up in a hotel, as I'm covered in soot and smoke. I hear from their fire investigator. He informs me that if the dog hadn't woken me up, when he did, a few minutes later, I would have been dead for sure. 2 things I'm grateful for: renter's insurance and my best friend Odin, the German Shepherd. I urge everyone to get both. I showered my best friend with some well-earned treats. Well, I haven't slept in days, and I nearly died from simply trying to rest before work. So now, I'm terrified every time I lay in bed. So, here's to another night of no sleep. I'm a United States Navy veteran who's seen many continents around the world and trained for scenarios in times of war. Spent a lot of time out in the woods, even in the desert. Many of our training exercises dealt with anything from wildlife to terrorist snipers. This is important as my training will come into play later on. So, I'm 2 years out of the service, back in my hometown. I decide to get into the medical field. Now, not what I was ever planning to do, but hey, your decisions change based on circumstance. So, I become an emergency medical courier. As I said before, there must be a lot of gangs in my town because, well, I sure stay busy. So, here I am at home with my baby boy, and I get a call to pick up some meds and drop them off to a facility over 3 hours away. I get the drugs after crawling out of bed and stumbling to my feet. Begin to drive to the backwoods of Indiana. I eventually arrive at the building, dimly lit up in the middle of a forest. I have my service pistol on my hip at all times, as I have a concealed weapons permit. So far, pretty uneventful. I have the nurse sign for the meds, and I hastily make my exit. I'm now outside, and hear rustling and branches breaking. Thinking to myself it could just be a deer, I continue walking to my car. I can see it about 20 feet away. Then, I turn around to be greeted by a monstrous 7-foot-tall beast. It had to weigh at least 500 pounds. It was closing in on me. I reach back behind my waist and fire my Beretta 9mm 3 times. I'm certain each bullet reaches its mark. No effect. Started running and noped the fuck out of there. I get to my car. Oh, jeez, did I lock it? Oh, why? Frantically tossing my keys on a lanyard, grabbing all the wrong ones, trying to get in my car. This beast reaches me. I quickly fall to the ground and hide under the car, and don't move a muscle. I lay still as I hear it scouring around the car, scratching and clawing, trying to reach for me. Terrified, I scream at it loudly. Stupid, I know. No effect. I try fire 2 more shots in the bear's direction. Not a good shot from this angle, and there's no room under my car. 1 bullet grazes this monster, and the other strikes its leg. The bear scurries off back into the woods. I barely have a signal on my phone, but I'm still able to call the police. The squad car shows up in about 20 minutes. My adrenaline's still rushing and blood pumping fast. Didn't even realize it while I was under the car, but I'd been mauled. Blood running down my leg as the officer shines his mag light to examine me. Medical arrives and patches me up as I make my full report to the officer. Apparently, it was illegal to fire my weapon in city limits. But he told me, well, since my life was in danger, he'd only issue me a warning. I thanked him, asked if I could go. 2 things I learned that night. Do not fuck with Mother Nature. Oh, and the other, I'm never going back to Kokomo ever again. Allow me to preface this and explain that the following days leading up to this, we thought someone or something was in our house. My wife and I are newlyweds, you could say. We just had our first child together. His name is Thomas. At the time, he was 6 months old. This is a 3-bedroom shotgun house, a starter home that needed a little work. The setup goes like this. Living room, our bedroom. Bathroom, nursery, office and kitchen, from front to back in that order. A huge backyard leading to a back alley. We were thrilled to have gotten the house in a quiet neighborhood and at such a decent price. I immediately got to work before moving in, fixing little things, plumbing related, cleaning new floors and the like. Eventually, we had everything ready to move in. We had no neighbors on either side of us. Lucky, I thought. Now, this detail is important for what follows. I've been living here for a few months now, with no issues. Me working a lot, and the wife a stay-at-home mom. As we lay in bed on a very warm, dark night, both of us began to hear loud banging sounds coming from what seemed to be every room in the house. I grabbed my 3-cell police maglite and Beretta 9mm with 16 rounds. I'm searching the house and it's completely quiet. I find nothing. There's no animals or anything. The flashlight is turned off and I go back to bed, putting my gun on the bedside table. Only for a few months later to hear it again, almost simultaneously in every direction. Every wall is being banged on. Bang. Slam. What the fuck? Hun, are you hearing this? I asked my wife. This happened several more times. I continue to search the house, inside and out. I even go out to the crawl space under the house. Nothing. At this point I'm confused because these noises are coming from inside the house. Very loud sounds. Like if someone were to slam a door near you, you'd know it was close. I arrive back in the house and my wife tells me she's calling the cops if it happens again. It does happen one more time, so being the protective mom she is, she phones the police. 2 officers arrive with their guns drawn and flashlights bright. I also do the same. Stay here, I urge my wife. I join them and we scour every inch of the property. Again, nothing. No sounds, no sign of anything or anyone. One of the officers tells me it could have been a draft. I have this dumbfounded look on my face. No way, I think. These sounds were loud. Several days pass and similar incidents occur. I think nothing of it because, well, we could never locate the source, nor could I ever find what or who the hell it was. Until I do. The ceiling light bulb in the living room explodes. At this point, we are pretty on edge, though, and still alerted to each and every sound, especially seeing how we have no neighbors close to us. My wife asserts that it must be a ghost warning us of something. But what? I come home from a long night of work. It's dark and raining, approximately 3 a.m. I'm walking towards the nursery to get my son and change his diaper and make him a fresh bowl. You know, the loving dad stuff. I bring him into the bedroom and hold him with my wife by my side. Time passes, maybe an hour or so. My wife tells me she hears someone walking around outside. Are you sure? I ask. Just then a loud crash comes from the very large living room window. I hand the baby over to her and grab my Beretta. Without thinking, I run straight to where I'd heard the sound. I'm now in the hallway, staring into the eyes of a shadowy figure about 10 feet away. To my horror, there's a middle-aged man crawling through our window. Shattered glass everywhere, coupled with a large, heavy object now sitting in the middle of our living room floor. At this point, I don't know how many there are, or if there's multiple, or, well, what are their intentions? My gun is raised, as well as my heartbeat racing. I yell at the intruder. What the fuck are you doing? You take one step closer and I'll blow your frickin' head off. Now, I wasn't being courageous or some tough badass by any means, but, well, at that moment with my family's life in danger, I was John Wick. The intruder, standing there, soaking wet, barely moving or saying anything. He mumbles after a brief moment, I ain't gonna hurt you, man. I move a few steps closer to the burglar. Hurt me? I yelled. I'll fucking end you. Get out of my house. As I inch closer, I realize, jeez, this guy is so drunk, he has no idea where he is or what's going on. I suppose our front porch light was like a beacon of sorts for this crazed individual. My wife has the police dispatcher on the phone, and they eventually arrive after over 20 minutes. It was a Mexican standoff as we waited. I can't begin to tell you what I was willing to do in the face of imminent danger. Adrenaline is a very powerful chemical. It will literally make you superhuman. The police are here, and they arrest the guy. Turns out he had a warrant out for his arrest. Assaulting a judge. I feel fortunate to this day I had my gun and my training. I'm also happy I didn't kill a guy over a window, although the police later told me I was more than justified. They both said in unison, I would have shot him. Now, had he been violent or charged at me, they would have certainly been cleaning up a dead body that night. So, to the would-be burglar, next time, you won't be so lucky. So I really hope you enjoyed that collection of short stories. Got quite a lot of shorter ones posted on the subreddit. And, you know, I like to read longer stories, but I do also like the shorter ones as well. But I know that some of you are out trucking yourselves. Some of you are doing long night shifts. Others are just doing housework. And you like something a bit longer to listen to while you're doing it. So, hope 45 minutes was enough for you this evening. I, of course, will be back again. Christmas doesn't stop me. I will be working through the holiday period. So, another video coming for you next week. But until then, you have a nice weekend. Stay safe. And remember, they're just stories. So, sweet dreams and bye-bye. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time listening to me. Now, if you enjoyed the Dr. Creepen experience, then come find me on Facebook. Come chat with me on Twitter. Listen to the background music and download it if you like on SoundCloud. Drop by the store, pick up a t-shirt. And, importantly, if you've got a story you'd like me to read, send it to Dr. Creepen's Vault, the subreddit I set up so that I could read your stories. Now, looking forward to seeing you all again real soon. So, come check me out, okay?